Hello. We are very excited to have you with us and to launch this new format of discussions around key innovation topics with prominent leaders, experts, entrepreneurs. Do not hesitate to ask your questions on social media, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. For our first topic, we have chosen to dive into one of the most pressing issues of our time, mental health. Mental health issues impact individuals, groups, organizations in many ways. And we're actually now able to measure its impact on business, which makes it even a more tangible point to discuss. To discuss about it in the next 15 minutes, I'm pleased to have with me Andres Fonseca, CEO and co-founder of Thrive, a company dedicated to creating evidence-based digital tools to detect, prevent, and treat mental health conditions. And Thrive is a trusted partner of AXA in the United Kingdom. We also have Thomas Tseng, CEO and co-founder of Valera Health, a company that empowers people to manage their mental health care using digital tools and data-driven insights. And Valera Health is a part of the AXA Venture Partners investment portfolio. And last but not least, we have Delphine Maisonneuve, the CEO of AXA Next and Group Chief Innovation Officer. So let's start, shall we? To all quickly, what does mental health actually mean to you individually and for the corporate world? Maybe we start with you, Thomas.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much for having me here, and also very proud to be part of the AXA family. I'm an internist. I actually treat physical health conditions. But in this larger context, I think mental health is really a reflection of your well-being. And traditionally, we talk about emotional health and well-being. But I think in this context, really, we need to think of the combination of physical and mental health, and really the balance between the two, and really you can't have one without the other.
Thanks, Thomas. Andres?
Yeah, I mean, I have very similar thoughts. So it's interesting. He's an internist. I'm a psychiatrist myself. But to me, it's always been very tightly linked. And traditionally, we thought about them as separate things. But to me, mental health is health. It's an aspect of health. So good physical health leads to good mental health, and vice versa. And they are very tightly linked. So yes, there are some special things that you have to think about when you're thinking about mental health, and it's about state of emotional well-being, as Thomas was saying. But you also sort of so we know, for example, one of the most important things that you can do to improve your mental health is exercise well. So that's kind of interesting. So it needs to be thought of in the whole context of health. Very much agree with Thomas there.
Delphine?
So for me, as a business person, I discovered mental health in 2020, I must say. And it was about a new word too, that was resiliency. And it's really something that now is part of the conversation in the workplace. How do you get this resiliency? How do you improve this at the moment where we've lost a lot of social interactions that we had at the workspace? So definitely it's about resiliency, and it's now a business conversation, which is absolutely new following the COVID crisis.
Thomas, back to you. Mental health issues can also be small issues. I'm thinking of the isolation with the COVID-19. In what ways, how have you seen them emerge around you?
Yeah, so it's just been, the 2020 has been tragically impactful for many of us, and it's aggravated tiny little things. And I think Delphine talked about resiliency and our ability to cope with stress and anxiety. And many of us have not prepared or optimized that resiliency. And so we're seeing quite a lot of exacerbations of people's, little issues like anxiety, issues of depression. We've seen we've been working with the police department and also working with investment firms, schools, and even the utility company, where we've seen really this markedly increased amount of anxiety, depression, and even suicide ideation amongst the employees of these different companies that we work with.
Andres, we were not used to talking about mental health because it was a bit of a taboo. Has this pandemic changed our perception?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think it has. I think it was changing before the pandemic started. I think it was already a topic of discussion in companies. So something that was new to them. So a lot of companies were investing in well-being in general. But then I think in 2019 we started having some conversations about mental health well-being more in a broader sense. But I think 2020 has been a catalyst for that. So a lot of health anxiety to begin with during the start of the pandemic, and then there's been isolation. There's been people worried about losing their jobs and their financial security, and all of those things have been spoken about much more openly than before. Also, we saw in our own platform, because we work remotely. We work in partnership with AXA, is one of our biggest partners here in the UK. And a lot of the companies that AXA was working with, we were able to sort of see a lot of those employees coming to a digital platform to actually start discussing these topics of anxiety. So social isolation, yes, health anxiety, definitely, but also things like financial security and also the education of children and having to work with, homeschooling and things like that were also topics that we were seeing in the platform. So yes, it's actually been. I think we had a 400% uptake on the platform over those first few months of the pandemic, and it's remained at 200% from before the whole pandemic started, which is a reflection of how much more willing people are to talk about this and explore it.
That's very interesting. Delphine, we have a question on the chat. I read it. More than ever, how can companies contribute to the well-being of their employees?
A great question, and Andres has started to address it. I think if I get some figures in, again, the pandemic has really given an acceleration, sadly, to this low state of mind. And AXA issued a report on that, a survey that was done June, just after the first wave of confinement and before the second. And 60%, more than 60% of the surveyed in Europe were saying that their state of mind, the level of stress they were experiencing had increased during the pandemic. And so and these people are employed, working in organizations at the moment. What can employers do? So first thing is get rid of the taboo. So it's improving, but still leaders in each and every organization have to show the way and show that this is not taboo anymore, and this is happening, and this is normal state of mind for any of us. So that's definitely the first thing. And second thing is to give access to a set of tools that can be digital, non-digital, but that really need to be accessible to the majority of the workforce. So it's not only about taking care of the ones that are really very, very, very ill, but it's really identifying very early in the process the ones that need a bit of support and bringing the tools, the adequate tools to do that.
Thomas, there has been over the last decade a 13% rise in mental health conditions and substance use disorders. And this has even accelerated since the COVID crisis. Do you expect this trend to continue? And can there be innovative solutions to change that outlook?
Yeah, I think this will continue. I think there's been a major tectonic shift in terms of how consumers, employers, and others view mental health. And I think Delphine is correct. I think that there's a much more progressive acceptance that our emotional well-being not just affects our mental state, but also our physical health. And I'll just give you an example. Like if you have a chronic medical condition like diabetes or heart failure or heart disease, when you are depressed and anxious, you're not taking care of yourself as much. So your self-care goes down, and then your physical health starts to break down. So a diabetic who's lonely and depressed will eat a pint of ice cream on a Friday night, and their sugar levels go sky high, right? And so I think people are really seeing this connection, and I think the internists and the family practice doctors and also consumers at large see this connection, and there will be greater need. In terms of the innovative solutions, I think companies like Andreas and ours is making accessibility and scalability a factor in these innovative conditions. So we provide personalized telemental health services, and we've seen also hundreds of % increases in usage because of that portability and that accessibility using digital technologies for you to access our therapists and our psychiatrists at the comfort of your home.
Thank you. A question from our audience, Andres. What are some simple practices that you and me and anyone from the audience can adopt or practice today to improve their well-being at work?
Well, okay. So one of the first things is to try and be aware of what you might be experiencing, what you might be suffering for. So there's very simple screening tools like you might have in our platform or in others platforms. Or if you're just wanting to have a screening for your mental health, just ask your employer how you can access this. So that's one thing, to just understand what may be going on with you is like the first step. And there are, as I said, very simple screening tools that can be used for this. Also, I mean, in terms of very simple techniques that one can use, so the breathing technique is one that I usually sort of talk about. Why do I talk about this one? It's very easy to learn, but it also forms the basis of more advanced techniques that you can use in other settings or for other reasons. It's very simple. So what you do is you're trying to gain advantage of that body-mind connection that we've been talking about. And what you're doing is you're taking in a deep breath that stimulates the vagus nerve, and among other things. So you are making use of this reflex that slows down your heart rate and communicates to your mind that you're feeling a bit calmer. So taking a deep breath, you take about like 3 seconds, you count to 3, 1, 2, 3, take that breath, hold it for another 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you let go of it very slowly, 1, 2, 3. And then you hold the breath before you take another one for another 3 seconds. So you can think of it as a square. It's the square breathing. So you go 1, 2, 3, hold 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2, 3, and then hold 1, 2, 3. And that's how you do it. That's very simple. It will calm you down. It will kind of reset your anxiety levels, as it were. And it will prepare you to learn other techniques that might be useful. That might be even more useful. Yeah.
Great tip, Andres, and I'm sure there are plenty of others. Delphine, what is the ambition of AXA in the mental health area? Could you give us some concrete examples about how we step up by merging forces with innovative startups?
So maybe the first example that I can give is that AXA as a company is now offering to its employees across the globe access to that kind of mental health programs. So it's good to teach and to ask other corporate customers to believe, but it's better if you apply it to you. And then what are we doing? So we're working on each market to identify partners, experts that can help us to build a bespoke program that then we can deliver to our corporates. So it's exactly what we've done with Thrive in the UK with AXA. And at the moment, we're working also on that in European markets. And we've launched in Asia our EMA platform, who is also contributing to that. And at the end of the day, it's about convincing the CFO of a company that this is really good for the performance of the company, because mental health means performance, means commitment. And on the opposite, when people are not well, this is immediately sick leaves for the workforce, and this is proven with data. And second, that through digital and technology, you can find and put in place affordable but very professional, very impactful means to really improve the well-being and the mental health of your workforce. And at the end of the day, I'm too long. It's good for the company, it's good for the employee.
Thomas, why did you decide in the first place to develop solutions in the mental health field? And what are the main outcomes for the users?
Yeah, that really stems from my experience as an internist when I'm taking care of patients with common conditions like diabetes, asthma, heart disease. And what I saw was that almost 30 to 40% of my patient population had some sort of mental health condition. And so really, we talked about the integration between physical health and mental health. And at least here in the United States, we have these huge unmet needs. We just don't have enough providers, and patients were half of Americans with a diagnosable mental health condition are not being treated. And so what we've developed is a system that is data-driven, outcomes-driven, and having a digital wrapping around the telemental health service. And what we've seen is dramatic high patient satisfaction. Our net promoter score is over 75, where the industry standard is less than 25 for healthcare organizations, where our no-show rate, our adherence rate, our no-show rate is less than 7%, whereas brick and mortar clinics are like 30% where the no-show rate. And more importantly, and most important, is our responsiveness to treatment. Over 85% of our patients with depression have responded within 3 months of treatment. And the industry standard is roughly around 40%. And so we are seeing dramatic results using this enhanced digital supplemented technology with clinical services that you can access through our app.
And Andres, to follow up on that theme, one key challenge in the mental health area is reaching individuals. So how does a solution like Thrive help answer that? And how does gamification help?
Yeah, no, that's one of the biggest challenges, particularly if you want to make this whole thing scalable. So we do a similar thing to what Thomas is describing. We do have a group of therapists that provide therapy online in various modalities. Interestingly, a lot of people prefer to have the interactions via text only, which is something that we discovered, and it's a population that perhaps wouldn't even be accessing services otherwise because they find that everything else is just too difficult for them. Even talking on the phone is too difficult for them. They find it too daunting. So as a first step, they prefer text. So yes, in terms of engagement, particularly when you have, like we do, an automated component. So it's a component that you can deliver yourself. Is we have what's called ICBT, Internet Mediator or computerized cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of how it's described. In which case, so you can deliver this therapy to yourself, and we have somebody that supports you in doing it. But the engagement is the key part, is where we can see if the engagement is not good. If somebody engages, we will get very good results. If somebody does not engage, that's when things fall down. And yes, gamification is part of that solution, part of how to get people to actually join in and actually complete their courses of treatment or whatever it is that they're doing, or the course of CBT, for example. So some people find that rewarding. One thing that I would say about gamification is that we make many mistakes on it at the beginning. It needs to make sense. It needs to be the game that you're playing, or whatever it is, the activity that you're doing, needs to resonate with the therapy that you're delivering. I'll give you something that worked and something that didn't. For example, we developed a very simple program for dealing with specific phobias, like, for example, arachnophobia, say. And in that one, using games to do the exposure component. So you were interacting with spiders that were cartoon-like, and then they became more realistic in the device. And we used augmented reality to sort of do some of the exposure component of the therapy. That worked very well as a game. It made sense. When we tried to do something different, so just award points and badges for activities on the app, that didn't work so well. So it needs to make sense. It needs to sort of be part of it. It needs to be something that is engaging, interactive, but also that makes sense in terms of the therapy. Because otherwise, it can disconnect people. It can actually make people not be so interested in carrying on because it doesn't gel. So it's rightly applied. But also other things like even the cognitive load, what we call cognitive load. So if you're looking at the app, if it doesn't feel native to the device that you're using, we see that people disengage. So you cannot do a generic app. It needs to be familiar to the person in some kind of way. And also it needs to be accessible. So, for example, you should be able to change the size of text and things like that, so that it's not difficult for you to use it. It doesn't set up barriers for you. It needs to be as intuitive as you can make it. So we gain a lot of insight about engagement, looking at where people stop using things or don't go forward. So gamification is an element, but there's that other element about making it easy and just making it attractive and just nice to use. I would say that there are important things that we've learned.
Fascinating. Thanks, Andres. Delphine, with that many startups and initiatives being launched in that field, how do we choose which companies to partner with and to invest in?
So definitely, I think the first thing is to team up with experts, medical experts, and identify some partners that would help you to make a 360 solution for your corporate customers. And at the end of the day, how do we choose these ventures? People like Thrive or Valera, it's definitely on three criteria. One, and Andres and Thomas insisted a lot on that, it's about usage, it's about engagement. We insurers sometimes love customers that don't interact, that don't have claims. For mental health, it's exactly the opposite that we need, people that engage. So capacity to engage and to foster usage is an absolute criteria. And then it's about data privacy, medical support, meaning that we know that this is not something that is medically proved and really helpful for the patient. And third, the capacity to scale up, because at the end of the day, in our operations, we need to make that available to 4, 5, 6, 8 million, 10 million of people. So the solution is to be strong and have the capacity to scale, if possible, across markets, but that's not a necessity.
Thanks, Delphine. Thomas, how responsible would you say managers are for the well-being of their teams? And what would be the advice that you would give to the managers that are watching us right now?
I would say managers have a lot of responsibility for creating an environment that is accepting of this topic. And last thing you want is an employee who had needed help for their depression and either attempted suicide or committed suicide. I mean, that is the worst thing that could happen, right? And so you need to create an environment at the workplace that will allow for the employee to bring these issues up and allow them to access services. And also managers need to be able to have the ability to talk about this and provide the necessary tools and webinars. So we have been doing webinars for companies throughout the last 12 months about this, how to recognize symptoms, how to, what are some of the treatment options available. And then I think strategically companies need to think about the available services that they make available.
That is very wise. Thanks, Thomas. Andres, maybe the last question of today for you. What is your experience working with AXA, in particular in the United Kingdom? And more broadly, what do you learn from your relationship with the corporates with who you work in the different countries you're in?
Yeah, so it's been a great experience working with AXA. So we were looking for a good partner to help us scale and help us reach as many people as possible. So part of our social impact mission really is to try and deliver a scalable service that is affordable, that people can easily reach. And AXA has been brilliant at helping us do that through their corporate programs. I think they enable a lot of people that wouldn't have access to this kind of a thing otherwise to have access, to have ready access. So even in the UK, we have the NHS, obviously, but a lot of people find themselves in waiting lists for various reasons. So through our cooperation with AXA, we've been able to alleviate some of that demand that exists, some of that need that actually Thomas was talking about. It's not just in the US. I think it's all over the place where there's this great need. And I think our collaboration with AXA has been extremely effective at helping us sort of reach a huge number of people, but also we're seeing sort of people recovering, like Thomas was saying. So we're able, so we have two programs. One is completely self-delivered and the other one is empowered. And we look at, for example, help seeking as an outcome for people, because again, people are finding it very hard to seek help. So we're looking at about 70-80% of people being able to sort of seek help when the normal number is around 30%, and this is because of the way we do things in partnership with AXA. And we also see that recovery rate similar to what Thomas was saying. I think this is because of the no-shows. I think it's because of this ability that AXA has empowered us to do, to be able to reach people in their own homes, to be able to be much more accessible, much more immediate, and far less about waiting on a waiting list and disengaging, or not having a good and responsive service. It's empowered us to do those things. And in terms of doing it across different countries, so we have partners in the UK. We have activity in Portugal as well, and we have New Zealand. We have also in Canada. Interestingly, I was listening to some of the things that Thomas was saying about his experience in the US, and I can tell you it's not that different. I think the challenges are very similar. It is a huge problem, mental health, and I think it's being underprovided just about everywhere. And I think we see that need, and it's not that unusual that the problems are going to be very similar. One of the newest things we've done in terms of international reaching out is something that surprised even us, is a lot more acknowledgement about mental health problems from Japan. We have a very incipient, it's not done there, but we've been having very good conversations with a partner in Japan, talking about the fact that in corporate Japan, the corporations who have a very different relationship, I suppose they have a longer term relationship with their employees in Japan. Now they're taking very seriously the matter of not just well-being, but mental well-being. And I suppose they were telling us that in Japan, this is even more taboo than in other areas. So it's a very interesting development that we're seeing very similar problems anywhere from Canada to Japan. So that's my insight there.
Thanks a lot. And this is the end of this event. So Thomas, Andres, a big thank you. We were already very proud to invest in your company, to partner with your company, with Delphine and all the AXA team. But on top of that, on behalf of Delphine and myself in particular, we are very thankful that you took the risk of testing that first event with us. So thank you for that. We were very proud to illustrate with you two and your teams, the purpose that we have at AXA, which is to protect what matters. And we felt that mental health was a very good illustration about what innovation means at AXA to serve our purpose. So thank you for that on behalf of the audience, and take good care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything.
Bye.
Great partners.